Good day, hose heads. Welcome back to Previously Delicious. Today's my final thoughts, and there's a couple of things I kind of want to go over about what I did like and what I didn't like about the game, and a couple of like weird little things that they kind of did in this one. So, without further ado, let's get started, eh? First up, the bad. I think it was kind of an interesting, if not bad, choice that they had made these platforming levels something that you couldn't replay or revisit or re-challenge after you'd done it the first time. It was kind of a one and done, especially since they would determine how much your max population could be. So if I didn't get the right score, I wouldn't be able to cap out my dudes or get the highest I could get for that population. Speaking of population, it was also an odd choice that the leveling up for your platforming levels was all done through the city building levels, and they really didn't have a whole lot to do with one another. I could see having some minor effect one to the other, but they really should have had more to the whole platforming aspect of this game. And oh my god, using spells in this game is so irritating. Between all the button presses you gotta make to get to where you want to be, and then actually tell it to go, and then click on the square you want it to happen, it's unnecessary. And every time you had to sit through the text, you could sort of click to speed up sections of it, but there's still all of that dang text you had to go through every single time you clicked on something. And then there was that whole problem with the left row. It does nothing. All it is your icon to signify what section you're in. So even though it does nothing, your cursor is sitting over top of that. And if you accidentally click on it, it tells you, oh, I'm sorry, I don't do anything. Click on something that will do something. Well, if that's the case, why do I even have a cursor in this column? Why doesn't it just default to the first selection in each column? Or just give me a buzz saying that I can't click on it, like, and the platforming just in general needed more to it. Needed more moves, more magic, more weapons, more armor. Just some sort of replayability aspect to those stages. Even though it looked like your character was running around with a huge rod of iron up his tuchus. Maybe they could have even added in some sort of a leveling system and stats or something, you know? Like, they really could have expanded on both sides of this game a little bit more. Just made it that much more entertaining. Even the towns could have used just that something more. You could have been allowed to select which buildings you wanted to put, or even just destroy the bridges, which apparently counts as a building, and you can only have a certain amount of buildings on a map. So if you build too many bridges, you can't have enough houses to have more people to have max population. Yeah, try and suss that one out. Oh my goodness, the music in this was just irritating. That is gonna haunt my nightmares for like the next couple of weeks. This is terrible. And now, the good. I did enjoy the platforming levels in this. They were very well spaced. The jumps weren't feeling like they were impossible. You had great control over your character. There was a weird drift thing where if you were jumping forward and you had that forward momentum, you could hold back and you would stop the forward momentum and then just fall straight down. But if you let go of the back button, you would once again continue your forward momentum. It was a little weird, but other than that, everything handled very nicely. And even though I had it in my bad section, I have it over here as well. Maybe there'll be a couple of those. Gaining levels through the city building, I found that was a pretty neat and ingenious way to do it. I'm not adverse to that kind of an aspect. It just needed to not be the only thing. And the city building was pretty simple. All you had to do was create your avenues and your roads and whatever, and then your dudes would just go ahead and start building. All in all, it was pretty good. It was enjoyable. It was pretty brainless, but it had that satisfaction of seeing your town slowly fill out, and every time you hear that when the dudes were going out to go and start building new stuff, it was just like, yay, they're going! There was also some really neat hidden aspects to this game that were not apparent like having a good score in the platforming levels would affect your population. If I cast the earthquake on the pyramid when the pyramid had appeared, I could have gotten a special item. And then there was another spot where you would make it rain on a forest and you'd get another item. What also was really neat was there was one compass you could get, and you could take the compass to one of 2 different areas to use it, but you could only use it once. So you had to choose if you wanted to have an extra life for your platforming stages, or if you wanted to have an extra magic spell for your platforming stages. And geez, the whole aspect of playing God in this game is a whole lot of fun. Just,
oh, I hate you guys. I'm gonna send a thunderbolt down and smite you.
Sometimes it was even required to go and start smiting their villages because they built the older huts and now they're building better huts. The better huts had more population. And I actually tried it, and it did make a difference to destroy those older huts and force them to build new things. I think one of my favorite aspects of this, and it was kind of underplayed, but it was there, was that you give your citizens quests. Like that Eagle Island. I could go to the island, and then I would throw stone tablets at them, bonk them on the head, and they'd be like, oh, hey, we got some stone tablets. Let's go and check them out. Then when they go there, they find an item, they come back, oh, hey, master, look what we found. Really cool. It's like, go, thou must get me The platforming was nice. It wasn't long and drawn out and overly complex. There was no map, which was also really nice. The levels were short enough, you didn't necessarily need one. And they're not entirely linear. Any sort of side areas you would go to would always reward you in some way and would always add to your score no matter what you did. I really did like that interaction between the different areas. Like, one area gave me a harp, which I had to use at another area to soothe the people. And then another area, they got sick, so I had to use a herb I got from one area to go over there and make those people better. It was a really nice interplay between the different stages. And the godly powers, there was quite the variety of them, even though you only really used 1 or 2 of them consistently. But they were a lot of fun. It was really interesting to add that kind of a flavor to the game. You don't see much of that kind of stuff outside of like Sim God or something. Even your little minions I thought were really cute. They were faceless, but they were cute. I kind of felt for them by the end. What was up with that? I can literally walk away from the game and gain levels. Idle heroes before it was cool. It was also really nice to see the overworlds increase in complexity as you got to different areas too. I especially noticed it at the rock level and the snow level, that there were so many guys running around, and I was constantly shooting and killing these dudes to stop them from destroying my villagers, and I'm trying to guide the villagers to go and seal off the layers, and it got to be a lot more involved, and I like that. And now for the meh. This is definitely an example of when you could tell they wish they had better technology to make the game. They had a vision in their head, and this is the best they could do. It was that whole spinny zoom in thing. It was cool the way they did it, and you could see them doing a similar type of trick with the wavy background in that one level as well. And the consistency of the bosses. Holy crap. That's both good and bad though. The Pharaoh was the best example. The first time I fought him, no thing. I just used a couple of spells and he was gone. But the second time I was fighting him, I was trying to conserve my spells, so I wanted to kill him just naturally because I felt I could. But he was so inconsistent in his dropping. Drove me bonkers! But that was a good thing. I couldn't just rely on super predictable patterns. And oh my god, the cutscenes were so bad. It didn't seem to be so bad until the very end credits. Nothing you clicked did anything. You couldn't skip text, you couldn't make it go faster, you couldn't skip to the next scene, and then it had to do this long, drawn out for every zone I freed. Okay, is it just me, or was that the 20th Century Fox fanfare at the end of the credits? The final verdict All in all, this game was fun. It was cool. I enjoyed it. They could have done a couple of things to make this just a little bit more interesting, and unfortunately they missed the mark entirely with their sequel. But I won't even go into that today. What they could have done to make it a little bit better would be maybe add different statues, like each stage had its own statue that you went in who had different powers, or have a way that you could upgrade your statue other than just a magic spell, like get a new sword, get new moves. Would have also been nice to have like even a 3-hit combo instead of just your ha ha. Kind of do the sort of thing like Little Nemo, the Dream Master, did, where you had different bodies you hopped into. Would have also been nice to have a little bit more control over the city building. That would allow your character to select where they wanted things to go and how things would be built, and could actually destroy things like the bridges. It was a great mix of city building and platforming that you don't see too often. There was a couple other games back in the day, something like Dark Cloud was one of those examples. They did that really well. That's one of those games I'm going to have to do eventually. This just goes to prove that this is a really solid format and a great style of game that I think should not be lost. I really need to go back to this kind of stuff, especially now with newer technology. Well, hosers, when it's all said and done with, it was a fun game. Straightforward enough, with enough hidden side things to keep you interested and keep you looking for more stuff to do. I'm going to have to give this game 6 lightly packed Chinook snowballs out of 10. Thanks for joining me for another episode of Previously Delicious.